The storm had come down from the mountains fast, rolling in like a herd of wild horses. The wind howled through the valley, snapping at the trees and bending the long grass flat against the earth. By the time Elias Carter got the gates shut and the cattle penned, the sky had split open with thunder, and sheets of rain blurred the whole world into silver and mud. He ran for the barn, boots pounding against the soaked earth, his oilskin coat dripping when he reached the doors. He shoved them open with a grunt and froze. Clara Monroe was already there. She stood near the horses, trying to calm them. Lightning flared behind her, outlining her in flashes of white fire. The storm had found her on the trail back from town, and she'd ridden like hell by the look of it. Her hat was gone, hair plastered to her face, blouse torn at the sleeve. Her horse, a nervous chestnut mare, stamped and snorted in fear. Elias stepped inside, dragging the doors shut behind him. The storm muffled to a dull roar, though the barn still shook with each rumble. For a long moment neither spoke. The air was heavy, thick with rain, horse sweat, and something else. "You should have stayed in town," he said finally, voice deep and rough. "I tried," she shot back, brushing a wet strand of hair from her cheek. "They said the bridge was going to wash out. I wasn't going to be trapped there." "You'd rather drown out here than spend one night in town?" Her eyes flashed in the lantern light. "You'd rather I didn't come back at all?" He exhaled through his nose. "Didn't say that." He grabbed the lantern from its hook, adjusted the wick, and set it on the workbench. The flickering lights stretched their shadows long across the hay-strewn floor. He turned to check the horses, and that's when he saw it. The blood. A dark stain spreading down her right sleeve. "You're hurt," he said. "It's nothing." She turned away, but the way she held her arm betrayed her. Elias stepped closer, boots crunching against the straw. "That's not nothing." "How deep?" "Just a scrape." He didn't buy it. He'd seen that kind of bleeding before, steady, slow, dangerous. "Let me see." "No." Her tone was sharp, defensive. Her chin lifted, eyes narrowing. She looked small against him, but she had steel in her, the kind of Steel City folks didn't think women from the East could have. Elias sighed, rubbed a hand over his face, and took a half-step closer. "Miss Monroe, I told you I can handle it. And I told you you're bleeding through your damn sleeve." His voice came harder now, low and commanding, the way he spoke to a spooked horse. "You'll get fever if it ain't cleaned." Clara's lips parted, but she said nothing. The thunder rolled again, rattling the rafters. Somewhere in the corner a horse snorted, the sound echoing like a warning. Elias's eyes darkened as he looked at her. "Stop looking. Take it off." Her breath caught. "Excuse me?" "The sleeve," he said gruffly. "You can't clean that through fabric. Take it off before I have to tear it." He hadn't meant it to sound the way it did, but the air between them shifted the second the words left his mouth. Sharp, electric. She stared at him, her eyes wide and uncertain, like she didn't know whether to slap him or run. But she didn't move. The rain pounded harder, and a leak started dripping from the roof near the stall. Elias didn't look away. His jaw was tight, his eyes locked on hers, waiting. Finally, she swallowed. Her fingers went to the buttons at her cuff. Slowly, she unfastened them, each one catching the lantern light. The fabric clung to her skin, wet and streaked with dirt. When she finally peeled the sleeve back, the wound came into view, an ugly gash from her wrist halfway to her elbow, red and raw. Elias's chest tightened. He stepped forward and reached for the flask hanging from a nail. "Sit," he said quietly, nodding toward a bale of hay. She hesitated but obeyed. The moment she sat, she winced, pressing her arm close. Elias crouched in front of her, close enough that he could feel the heat of her breath. He poured water over the wound, the dirt washing away in dark rivulets. She hissed, jerking slightly. "Hold still." "I am," she whispered, voice trembling. He reached for a rag from the bench, doused it with water, and cleaned the rest. His fingers brushed her skin as he worked, rough, calloused hands that somehow moved gently. She could feel the strength behind every motion, the restrained force of a man used to breaking wild horses and mending fences with his bare hands. When he tied a strip of clean linen around the wound, his fingertips lingered at her wrist. He didn't mean to, but he didn't pull away either. "You should have told me it was this bad," he said quietly. She met his gaze, lips trembling. You've already made it clear you think I can't handle ranch work. I wasn't about to prove you right. He gave a small, humorless smile. You got grit. I'll give you that. Lightning flashed. The barn lit in white for an instant. In that brief flare, Clara saw his face up close. The scar along his jaw, the shadow of stubble, the line between his brows that said he'd seen too much and talked too little. Her voice softened. You talk like you've patched up worse. Plenty worse. He tied the last knot and let out a breath. Then he sat back on his heels, looking at her arm one last time. There, that'll hold. The rain softened to a steady whisper. For a while, neither spoke. Clara's heart was beating too fast, too loud. She tried to look away, but her eyes found his again, steady, unreadable. You could have let me be, she said finally. I could have, he replied, but I didn't. Something flickered between them. Something fragile, dangerous. He stood towering over her. His coat was still wet, water dripping from the brim of his hat. He hung it on a hook, then turned back to her. You'll stay in the bunkhouse tonight. The storm's not letting up. I can ride to the cabin. No, you can't, he interrupted, voice firm. River'll be over its banks. You'd drown before you hit the ridge. Clara stared up at him, defiance fading. She could tell from his tone there was no use arguing. He wasn't just being stubborn. He was right. He leaned one shoulder against the post, eyes half in shadow. You ain't used to taking orders, are you? Not from men who bark them, she said. He gave a faint grin. You'll learn I only bark when I'm listening to fools. Her lips curved despite herself. The corner of his mouth twitched like he almost smiled but didn't let himself. Then silence settled again, heavy but not empty. The lantern light flickered across his face, catching the color of his eyes, storm gray, sharp, alive. She found herself studying the line of his jaw, the way his hands rested at his sides, the way he carried himself, steady, like a man who'd made peace with danger long ago. Elias, she said quietly. He lifted his chin a fraction. Yeah? Why are you out here alone? He didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted toward the rain-slicked window. Land needs work. Someone's got to keep it. That's not what I asked. He turned back, the look in his eyes harder now. Some things ain't for talking. She held his gaze. Maybe some things need to be. He took a step closer, slow and deliberate, until she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You keep pushing, Miss Monroe, he said softly. You'll find I ain't the man you think I am. Her pulse fluttered. Then show me who you are. For a heartbeat, neither moved. The rain tapped like fingers on the roof. The lantern hissed. Then he took a breath, turned away, and grabbed the bandage roll again, busy hands, controlled, steady. You're patched and safe for the night. That's all that matters. But the look he gave her before he blew out the lantern said something else entirely, something he wasn't ready to name. Darkness filled the barn, broken only by the faint light of lightning in the distance. Clara listened to his boots cross the floor, the creak of the door as he stepped out into the storm again. For a long while, she sat there, the smell of rain and hay thick in the air, his touch still ghosting along her skin. She looked down at the bandage, neat, tight, done by a man who'd learned care the hard way, and something inside her shifted. Elias Carter had walls as high as the mountains, but for a few minutes in the dim lantern glow, she'd seen what was behind them. And that, more than the wound, more than the storm, was what left her shaken. Outside, thunder rolled one last time over the valley. The rancher walked into the rain, head bowed, coat flaring in the wind. He didn't look back, but every step he took was heavier than the last, because in that barn, with one wounded woman and a lantern's flame, he'd felt something he'd sworn he'd buried years ago, something wild, something dangerous. He'd unleashed it without meaning to, and now he wasn't sure he could cage it again.